Tony Beets, do you copy?
Better come up with something a little bit more intelligence than what we're doing. See what I can come up with, and then we'll take it from there.
Tony Beets didn't just have a bad season, he nearly lost it all. His old dredge, meant to bring in gold, broke down so hard it almost sank his whole operation. Machines failed, gold stayed hidden, and even the skies turned against him. Let us just say this: one final breakdown nearly crushed everything. But what happened next will leave your jaw on the floor. The Klondike season that broke the king. It all kicked off with a huge job. The crew had to pull a thick steel cable, nearly 3/4 of a ton and as thick as a soda can, across a muddy pond. But it wasn't just a straight shot. They still had to drag it uphill about 50 yards to connect it to a dozer sitting at the top. Easy, right? Not even close. But just when they thought things couldn't get worse, the ground beneath them started to shift. The team started with a basic plan. Hook a rope to the cable, toss it over the berm, and use the dozer to pull it up. Sounds simple on paper. But when they gave it a shot, the rope just wasn't cutting it. It barely budged that monster cable. The thing may as well have been glued to the ground. Lynn, one of the main guys, figured they'd need more muscle. The dozer didn't have the right angle to yank the thing up, so he brought in the big guns, a massive excavator weighing around 55 tons. That thing's not just big, it's a beast. Here's the problem though. To get in the right spot, the excavator had to cross soft, squishy ground, not ideal when you're steering something heavier than 10 elephants. As expected, the excavator started to sink, slowly, sure, but enough to make everyone sweat.
So already got the dozer over there, so I have to connect the cable to it, and I will put a rope over there and maybe use the cat to get it over there.
Still, Lynn pushed ahead. He swung the bucket arm over and chained it to the steel cable. Then he fired up the machine and started to pull. Dirt flew, the bucket creaked, and slowly, painfully slowly, that stubborn cable began to move. Bit by bit, inch by inch, it crawled up the slope. Finally, it reached the top. They hooked it onto the dozer, and just like that, one headache was over. But knowing Tony's luck this season, it was just the beginning. The next problem? The dredge. There were high hopes for it, but things kept breaking down. Hydraulics gave out, hoses burst, and more often than not, the gold just wasn't showing up. They worked from dawn till dark, but the payoff wasn't worth the pain. Rain made things worse. Week after week of heavy downpours turned roads into soup and made every job harder. Trucks got stuck, machines stalled, and tempers flared. Even with years of experience, they couldn't catch a break. One time, they spent hours digging a trench only for the walls to collapse from all the water. It was a mess. They had to redo the whole thing, wasting time, fuel, and energy. Not to mention morale was sinking fast. He's usually the guy who powers through no matter what. But this season wore him down. You could see it in his face. Less laughing, more swearing. The man was tired. To make matters worse, parts were always delayed. Waiting for shipments felt like forever. A simple fix could take days.
Good, so you guys want to fire it up and make the thing work?
Should we need a bottle of champagne? And
Well, you know, the way this summer been going, I don't know if the old lady's gonna go for that.
yeah.
The crew just stood around watching time and money slip away. Even when they managed to run the wash plant, breakdowns came quick. Belts snapped, water pumps failed, and sometimes the pay dirt didn't even have gold in it. Imagine digging all day and coming up with nothing. Everyone felt the weight. Crew members started questioning if the season was cursed. They weren't joking, it really did seem like nothing could go right. By mid-season, he was behind, way behind. He needed to move fast to hit his gold goal, but the setbacks wouldn't stop. Mother Nature, busted machines, and plain old bad luck were tag-teaming him hard. Even with decades of experience under his belt, nothing could have prepared him for this kind of chaos. Every time something got fixed, something else fell apart. Every new plan got stomped by a fresh delay, like trying to win a game where the rules changed every 5 minutes. Still, he didn't stop, didn't know how. He pushed his crew, patched up what he could, and kept on digging for that sweet yellow metal. By the time the season wrapped, he had pulled in some gold, sure, but nowhere near the big number he had in mind. It was a reminder, mining's rough, real rough, and when things go sideways, they really go. Season 15 showed a different version of him. Tough, stubborn as ever, but under fire. The Klondike doesn't care how long you've been around. If it wants to chew you up, it will. And this season it did. Round after round after round. Maybe next season will be the one. Maybe not. But one thing's locked in, he ain't giving up. Not today. Not tomorrow. He'll be back in the mud, chasing that sparkle no matter what tries to stop him. Right out the gate, the dreams were bigger than the Klondike. He was betting on that giant old dredge to roar back to life and bring home the bacon. It had been sitting quiet for years, covered in rust, dust, and pigeon droppings, but the plan was to wake it up, get it humming, and watch the gold roll in. It had all the makings of a comeback story for the books, but instead, it became the season from the junk pile. Getting that old dredge to float was like trying to teach an elephant to dance. Heavy, clunky, stubborn, and barely wanting to budge. When they finally got it lifted off the ground and set into the water, it looked like things were turning around. The team was hyped. That machine was floating, swaying just right. But then the real fun started, and by fun, I mean a mess. They pushed the dredge to start running again. After all, the thing was built to chew through pay dirt and suck up gold like a vacuum cleaner. Instead, it coughed and wheezed like it needed a dozen doctor visits. Pumps acted up. Belts slipped. Grease flew everywhere. Bolts came loose like the thing was shaking itself apart. Nobody wanted to be near it unless they had to be.
Grab it with the bucket and then to see if we can lay it up on top. That's no different than a bicycle chain. It's just that this is a little bit tougher and we have to get a little bit meaner.
That dredge had attitude. They found some gold, but not much. Gold dreams in a land that won't give. Even after they got the system going, the gold wasn't showing up in piles. It was more like a few specks here, a sprinkle there. And yet they kept at it, hoping those 2 days of running would at least give them something worth the work. When the weigh-in came, 22 ounces showed up on the scale. Sounds all right, but when you think about the size of the machine and the effort it took, that's barely anything. Just a tiny pat on the back after a week of wrestling with a monster. Meanwhile, over at Paradise Hill, things weren't exactly glowing either. They had Slucifer running full tilt, which helped a bit. That plant was one of the few parts of the operation that wasn't acting like a spoiled brat. It ran steady week after week and managed to keep up with the piles of dirt being fed into it. But even then, it was clear that the gold wasn't hiding in every scoop. Tony's crew stacked up pay dirt like it was going out of style. Mountains of the stuff all waiting to go through the plant. But there was a catch. The plant couldn't chew through it fast enough. It was like having a fast car but only being able to drive 5 miles per hour. Frustrating to say the least. At the end of the week, when they weighed Slucifer's take, everyone held their breath. Maybe this would be the boost they needed. Maybe this would make the dredge look like a warm-up act. But the numbers weren't fireworks and party hats. Just another quiet nod from the dirt, saying, "Nice try, better luck next time." And then there was the weather. One day, it would pour like a waterfall. The next, the sun would beat down so hard it turned mud into dust. The ground shifted. The water levels messed with the pumps. Everything felt off. Nothing wanted to work the way it should. Tony kept going. He didn't slow down, didn't throw in the towel. That's not his style. He barked orders, fixed parts, stared down problems like they were wild animals, and just kept grinding. His crew followed even when they were tired, wet, cold, and probably dreaming of beaches. One of the most painful parts of the season was watching the dredge show its age. Built in another time, it used to be the king of the Yukon. But now, it was more like a grumpy grandpa who used to play football and now can't get out of a recliner. Even when it ran, it needed constant babysitting. There were moments when the dredge looked like it might finally perform. The gears spun just right.
Did you happen to dig out the sand behind the dredge?
I never even had the hole down there.
Water flowed in steady streams. The bucket line chomped into the dirt like it remembered how to mine. But then thud, something snapped, or jammed, or sparked, and everyone scrambled like ants kicked out of a hill. Tony talked about the cost of keeping it going. Sure, it didn't burn through fuel like the newer machines, but with all the parts breaking and the slow output, the numbers didn't balance. He knew it. Everyone knew it. But Tony had history with that machine. He wasn't going to let it die without one last good run. Even when the days dragged on and the numbers stayed low, Tony kept the same look on his face. Determined, grit in his teeth, boots always muddy, voice loud enough to shake trees. That season may have tried to knock him down, but he planted his feet deeper. The crew had their hands full, not just with machines, but with each other too. Tempers flared, people got tired of dealing with the same problems every day. Long hours, tough jobs, cold mornings. But they stuck with it. Because that's what you do when you're part of Tony's team. You show up, you shovel, you fix what breaks, and you try to squeeze gold out of rocks that don't want to give it up. By the end of the season, the gold totals across the board were nothing to scream about. The numbers didn't break records, no one danced, but they weren't empty-handed either. They had just enough gold to keep the dream going, just enough to make it to the next season with plans to do it better. Tony wasn't ready to give up on anything. Not the dredge, not the team, not the hill. He looked at the mess and thought about how to clean it up. He saw the broken parts and imagined stronger ones. He saw the weak gold totals and pictured big bars stacked up next time. Season 15 gave him nothing but trouble. But Tony isn't a stranger to trouble. He's been through thick and thin in the mining game. He knows the land doesn't always give easy wins, but he keeps coming back, keeps fighting, keeps pushing. Because one good day on the mine can make up for weeks of struggle. One bucket full of shiny flakes can erase the memory of a broken pump. One big clean out can change everything. That's the kind of thinking that keeps Tony in the dirt, keeps his boots planted, keeps his eyes on the next big haul. This season might have been full of bad luck, but it didn't break him. Not even close. Tony Beets is the kind of guy people think always hits the jackpot when it comes to gold mining. Big machines, big claims, big goals. But in season 15 of Gold Rush, things didn't go the way anyone expected. What looked like another golden ride turned into a season full of broken dreams and empty dirt. His luck? It packed up and went missing before the first ounce got counted.
Season isn't over yet. It's all up and up. I think it's awesome.
It all kicked off at the river, where Tony had high hopes. He was ready for a strong haul, something around 200 ounces or more. That seemed like a fair goal for someone who's been doing this forever. The crew was geared up, the equipment was running, and the ground had history. But the early numbers were a joke. Week after week, the totals stayed low. It went from 10 ounces to 20, then maybe 36. That kind of return isn't just disappointing, it stings, so they push the big machine harder. A monster trommel, a ghost of a payday. The trommel was fired up and grinding around the clock. That thing was supposed to be a gold-catching beast. Running 24/7, it should have been pulling close to 400 ounces from Paradise Hill. The whole setup was locked in tight. But when the gold started getting counted, it wasn't pretty. The numbers trickled in slow. Nowhere near the target. Mike, the guy on gold weighing duty, kept calling out totals that sounded more like loose change than payday. 20, 30, maybe 80, then a hop to 100, a crawl to 120. It kept inching forward, but way too slow. By the time it hit 205, it felt like a joke. The machines were doing their thing. The crew was grinding hard, but the dirt just wasn't giving. They squeezed out 412 ounces that week. On paper, not awful. But this wasn't just any operation. 400 ounces barely covered costs. Fuel, repairs, long hours, none of it came cheap. When all that work only nets just enough to keep the wheels spinning, it's a real problem. Season's in haul, 1,669 ounces. To a rookie, that might look shiny. But for a seasoned miner, it was clear something went sideways. More was needed. A lot more. And it didn't show up. It wasn't just the numbers dragging. The whole site felt heavy. Every day brought a new headache, machines busted, weather slowed things down. Crew looked drained, nothing clicked. Even when things ran smooth, the gold stayed buried. The dirt clung to every ounce like it didn't want to let go. Frustration was obvious. That look, the one where the math doesn't add up and it stings, all the gear, all the land, all the know-how, but no gold. Each bucket of pay dirt felt like a losing scratch-off. And this wasn't new territory. Paradise Hill had paid off in the past. The ground had proven itself. That made it even worse. Same spot, same machine, same plan, but no gold like before. Running a setup like this isn't cheap. That trommel guzzles fuel like crazy. Then there's the loaders, dozers, trucks, all money pits. Running them non-stop racks up fast. If the gold doesn't flow in chunks, the whole operation starts bleeding cash. Paradise Hill wasn't a backyard dig, it was a full-on industrial beast. Big dreams, big equipment, big money. When a spot like that turns cold, it's more than disappointing. It's dangerous for business.
What was that? You gotta be kidding me. Okay, shut it down, close the well, close the well.
Expectations were sky high, reality didn't deliver. Week after week, the pressure mounted. Every light load hit like a punch. Still, the push didn't stop. More hours, more fuel, more hustle, trying to grind a win out of a losing hand. But nature doesn't play fair. Breakdowns were relentless. Belts snapped, engines stalled, hydraulics failed. Fix one, another breaks. It felt like the machines were rebelling, more time fixing than digging. And in mining, time means money. By mid-season, choices had to be made. Pull back, cut losses, or double down. Only one path made sense. All in. Gamble on the ground, turning around. But it never did. More fuel in the trommel. More dirt moved, more hope burned. But the numbers stayed cold. Not enough. Never enough. And then came the rain. Weather always plays a role in mining, but this season it felt personal. Rain turned roads to mud, slowed down hauling, messed with the gear. Every storm felt like another delay. And delays mean missed opportunities. It wasn't just the ground holding back the gold. The skies seemed to be in on it too. There was also the stress of watching others do better. Other miners on the show were pulling in solid numbers, hitting goals, banking ounces. Meanwhile, Tony was stuck in the grind, barely keeping up. That kind of pressure isn't easy to shake. It builds, and when you're the guy known for big wins, small losses feel even bigger. He tried different cuts, tested different patches, but the gold didn't come. Each test was another swing and a miss. The crew kept at it day after day, even when it felt pointless. Because quitting isn't in the cards, not for Tony. He pushed until the final week, hoping for one last big win. It never came. In the end, the total looked better than it felt. 1,669 ounces sounds decent, but the cost of getting there was brutal. Equipment, wages, fuel, repairs, it all chewed away at the bottom line. When you stack it against the effort, the math gets ugly. Season 15 turned into a lesson. Gold doesn't care who you are. It doesn't show up just because you want it to. Even the best miners can hit a cold streak. Tony Beets, the legend of the Klondike, found himself knee-deep in bad luck, and the cameras caught every moment of it. This season will stick in his memory. Not for the gold he pulled, but for the fight it took to get it. The grind, the setbacks, the heartbreak, it all left a mark. But if there's one thing about Tony, it's that he doesn't back down. Bad luck might slow him, but it won't stop him. He'll be back, gear running, eyes locked on the next patch of gold. Because that's what miners do. They dig, they dream, and they keep going, no matter how tough the season gets. But here's the real question. Has Tony Beets finally lost his golden touch? Or is this just the calm before his next big strike? Comment below, smash like, and don't forget to subscribe.